Today, we are going to fill out an updated 2024 Senate election map. It has been quite a while since I released my last prediction. So for the month of July, I am releasing now my new updated 2024 election prediction map. And we're going to begin with the safe states for the Democratic Party. And we will start from west to east, beginning with the state of California, which is no surprise. It will be going safe. And I expect it to be a little bit closer than usual. There's a lot of heat around the Republican Garvey being able to make some sort of headlines. And right now, there isn't too much polls on a lot of these states, but we can see here that, still Schiff has some pretty consistent leads, and I think he'll win fairly easily. Next up, in the state of Washington, we also, a lot of these safe states do not have much polls, so we have to go off of a lot of consensus, but it has been showing some closer polls, as we can see here, a +9 and a +8. And it's going to be pretty interesting what's going to happen. I still think it'll be a safe margin for the Democratic Party. Moving down to Hawaii, no surprise there, another safe state. And then up the East Coast, we're going to have a slew of other safer states going for the Democratic Party up here. And I do believe that New Jersey will be safe. It is going to be contested since the incumbent senator is running for third party. And we see a lot of polls here having it close. But I think at the end of the day, right now I have it at exactly a 12-point win for Kim. But in my next prediction, I could see it going lower. I just need more data to prove that. And we are also going to be moving Maine from safe down to likely, since I do expect the top of the ticket, especially after the recent debate, to make a lot of gains nationwide. And I think this will have an impact, quite a bit of an impact down ballot in the Senate and in the House. So moving on to Republican safe states, 12 percentage points or higher. No surprise to all of these. We're going to be putting all these states in the safe column. And West Virginia will be our first flip of the night from Democrat to Republican, since incumbent Joe Manchin will not be running for re-election. So that will be a very easy flip in a state that Republicans will win very, very easily. And as you can see here from the polls, it is not even close. We have a 33-point race here in the latest poll, and that's the only one that's really come out. No other polls have really come out in the meantime, but this is the one we have, +33. I think it is going to be around that margin as well. But moving on next to the last state that I will put into the safe column, but it's going to be more on that range, and it's going to be the state of Minnesota. Amy Klobuchar is just a very, very popular incumbent, and I still think despite the national environment shifting, she will barely hold that safe margin. As we can see here, most of these polls have had her up by 12 percentage points or higher. Right now, I'm going to keep it in that safe margin in this map. Next up, moving into the likely states for the Democrat Party. First one, no surprise at all, Angus King. He is running as independent as well as Bernie Sanders, but I'm going to put them down both as Democrats since they do caucus with the Democrats, and I honestly could see Angus King winning by a safe margin. Right now, I will leave it in a likely margin until I receive more polling. Next up to a race that usually should be safe, but the former governor, Larry Hogan, is running for Senate. Originally, he had led some pretty, good polls, back then, but nowadays, when we do have Also Brooks as the candidate, and we do have some more polling coming out, it does show that Also Brooks is probably going to win by a likely margin. I do not think Hogan could win. Maybe in like a really big upset, he could, take the victory. But right now, I think that Also Brooks will win this state in the likely margin. I also think that in New Mexico, the incumbent will also win, probably closer to that lower end of the likely margin, probably more around, I would say, 6 to 7 percentage points. We haven't had too much polling. Republicans and Republican internals have had it at around a 4-point race. And the New Mexico Political Report does also have it at the 7-point of public policy polling. They do have it at a 7-point win for Heinrich. I do think it'll be right now in that likely margin. Republicans will also gain a few likely states, two mainly, Texas and Florida. These states will be extremely Republican this time around in the presidency, and I don't expect too much ticket splitting to go on. I expect Texas and Florida to both be pretty safe in Republican column. And as you can see here, most of the polls from Florida do even have Scott up by safe margins. And in Texas as well, there has been a few polls that had just suggested that Cruz will underestimate Donald Trump, but still a lot of polls have it even at a double-digit margin. At the end of the day, I think both of these candidates will win fairly easily, a lot easily than what they won by the last time. And the rest of these states will be these states that will be more contested. But before we continue on this video, please like and subscribe, comment your suggestions in the section below, and hit that notification bell. Thank you guys so much for watching. But let's return back to the map. Republicans are already at 50 seats. Democrats are at 42. And this is why I give Republicans probably over a 90% chance of winning the Senate, because all they have to do now is flip one of the states that Donald Trump had won in 2020 and in 2016. Trump had won, a majority of these states. But to begin with a state that I think is probably the easiest flip for Republicans, it's going to be the state of Montana. Donald Trump will probably win this state by 20, maybe over 20 percentage points. And the polls right now, show that he has been taking that lead. He has been leading most of the newer polls. Originally, people didn't know too much about Sheehy, but after those primaries, Sheehy has been coming out as a pretty strong candidate, and I think he will take this by a lean margin between 2 and 6 percentage points. I also think Republicans are going to take the state of Ohio on that lower end between 2 and 6 percentage points. The polls right now still do favor the incumbent Sherrod Brown. However, I do think that they will win. Trump, I expect, will win this state by a safe margin over 12 percentage points. I do not expect Brown to be able to win, especially by 5. Polls have been tightening over time. As we can see, it has been getting closer and closer. The newest one has Brown only up by 5, and I continue to expect that the Republican Moreno will end up winning by a very narrow margin. Democrats, though, will take a few states in that lead margin as well. First of all, the state of Virginia. Originally, I think Virginia belonged in that likely column, but on the top of the ticket, once again, we see a pretty strong performance for Donald Trump in those polls. And we can't really say we have too many polls to say. Last one from April had Kane up by 12, but this is pretty unreliable. There hasn't really been a poll out in a while, but I think it will reflect a little bit of how the presidency is doing. I think Cow is probably the best candidate that Republicans can put up in the state of Virginia. I still think he'll fall short, as well as Donald Trump falling short in the state, and he will probably lose by between 2 and 6 percentage points, maybe a little more on that higher end, closer to 6. In Pennsylvania, it will definitely be one of the closest races that Casey will have to perform in, and I still think that he will win this state in the lean margin. However, I do think it'll be a lot closer than some of his other wins, where he had, won up to double digits. And these polls have been all over the place. We have one up him by 12, one where he's only up by 4 that just came out. But all in all, I think more polls that come out will show him winning probably by around 4 percentage points, maybe 5, maybe on that lower end to 3. It really depends how the top of the ticket performs, but I think he will definitely outrun and perform a lot better than Joe Biden in the state of Pennsylvania. I also think Democrats right now will win the state of Wisconsin, more on that lower end. I do see it tightening a little bit from before, and since I believe this will be very close on the presidential level, and Donald Trump does have that advantage, it will affect it a little bit. Baldwin is an incumbent though, so she does have that advantage, and the polls right now have been favoring her in that lean margin. I do expect these to be pretty accurate, probably the Emerson College one to be the most accurate of all. I do think she'll win by around 2 to 4 percentage points. And I think now we're going to move on to the closest states. Nevada, Arizona, and Michigan will be probably the closest states in the Senate race this time around. We will begin with the state of Michigan, where I still believe Democrats do have a slight edge in winning the state of Michigan by a tilt margin between 0 and 2 percentage points. And these polls, even though there are still a lot of undecideds, do show a very competitive race, where Slotkin leads the highest by 5, and on the lowest, Slotkin and Rogers are tied. Right now, I will give it to the Democrats with a little bit of an edge. But now moving to the states of Arizona and Nevada. These are two states that right now are pretty much 50-50 in my eyes. And I could see Trump having a big impact on these states, since he is performing in the polling in both these states outside of the margin of error. So we're going to have to continue to monitor these two states for sure. Beginning with the state of Arizona, I do believe this will be a very, very tight race. Right now, I am slightly giving it to Gallego. I feel like Kari Lake will definitely make this extremely close, and it could be 50-50, but right now I think Gallego does have that slight edge. Lake is a pretty polarizing figure, and I do feel like many people in Arizona do not like her for that reason. Gallego also, too, is pretty left, a lot more left than what he says he is, but he does not have as much of that attention that Lake had, especially in that gubernatorial race where she lost by a very narrow amount. The polls have been tightening, and we will continue to see the change in these polls. And this prediction could change, but right now I'm giving it slightly to the Democrats. However, I do believe the state of Nevada will be a flip towards Republicans. In the 2022 midterms, Republicans were able to flip the governorship to a Republican for the first time in a while and came almost within 1 percentage point of flipping the Senate race, which was held by Catherine Cortez Masto, and she is a pretty popular incumbent, to say the least. I think the Republican running for office in Nevada nowadays will be able to much more bring out that Trump base, and I think he will do very well. And the polls do not reflect this yet at all. Brown right now is doing pretty horribly in these polls, but I feel like there needs to be more released. This right now is not accurate at all. Trump being up in this state by up to 5 to 8 percentage points, and then Rosen being up by 12 just does not make sense at all. I feel like Brown still needs to get his name out there. I don't know if too many people even know his name, but once he gets it out there, these polls will definitely change a lot. And I think right now that Brown will actually win this election, as the Republicans have been gaining a lot in the state of Nevada recently. And this will be my final map: 53 seats for Republicans, 47 for Democrats. Republicans probably flip an average of 3 seats in general. The states of Arizona and Michigan and Nevada are going to be probably the closest races this time around. I think that right now this is probably the most likely of events. And I will continue to change this map as we get on. There are still around 4 months left until the election, so we have a few months of polling left to see what's really going to happen. And we're going to continue to monitor this map. But thank you guys so much for watching this video. Please like, subscribe, and comment down in the section below. And I'll catch you guys out in the next video.